trick in the Joe is to try to make a straight weapon develop a bunch of curves and flowing kind of nature to it and striking like that. So that's, I would say, one of the values of the Joe, one of the things I always appreciate about it. Just saying on some, real quick on some of these things, like when you find the end, this is like a type of awareness training, finding the end. A guy that studied Jodo told me you should have actually your little finger over the very end. Just when you're practicing, if you have one at the home, so you want to. And the reason being that is if this is like this and I push on something, my hands are sweaty, my hand will slide, whereas this slightly supports it. This was like a guy that studied Jodo, not just practice with a stick like most of us do. So that kind of thing. I would also say when you engage any of the weapons, whether they're the Jo or the Boken or any of the Kobudo, older Budo, older Budo, Kobudo weapons, is you want to find a way to transition you and into the weapon. So try not to grab it like that, but kind of have you, then this sort of transition. You want to grab a little harder with the little finger and more subtly with the first finger. But don't ever have your fingers out like that because they're going to get damaged. So you don't see a guy hit a golf ball like that, but they kind of flow into the weapon. Then another thing I would say is the idea of relaxation when you're using the Jo, like when you're here in these sorts of movements and you have somebody grabbing the end, if you tighten up and you pull in one direction, the bow or the Jo will actually accentuate that effect of locking you up. You understand that idea? So what I would say is it's really important to stay soft when you're doing these kind of movements and to have some curves in the movements. Like, this idea of a curve is really like a fundamental principle. Can you take your glasses off for just a second? And you can feel it, like say makes a punch, like shoot on so like that. So it makes a punch. Okay, so say I'm here and I want to push him over. If I push straight, he can push exactly against my hand. So we're kind of locked up. Similar to me when you're like here, you feel kind of locked up with your partner. But if you make a little bit of a curve, it's super hard to compensate for that on his behalf. Because the curve is basically an angle of approach that's changing constantly, and he can't sort of figure out how to get right behind it. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why I made a huge effort at some point to smooth off all the edges of my karate, because I saw the virtue of the curve. And then I would say extrapolate that idea just a little further, and what is relaxation but a bunch of curves? Okay, so that's why relaxation is really important, because it's a bunch of force vectors kind of chaotically moving in the same direction, in a path. Okay, so we had a really good friend who passed away, and I always want to pay tribute to where my lessons came from because I think that we should always be grateful. But his name was Kevin Choate, and he had a thing called chain theory, and it was really quite marvelous, wonderful little explanation. He said, like, imagine if you had a chain like this, and I dropped the chain. Well, all the links essentially are falling along the same plumb line, but each one is falling independently in its own way along that plumb line. So this would be equated to relaxation. Whereas this, you can take a stick and you can balance a stick, right? You can hold a stick like that, but you can't hold a chain like that. So like your opponent can dial behind if I'm doing something. He grabs my hand like this. If I push down really hard like this, push back. If I push down really hard like that, basically I'm holding a stick. But if I kind of make a amorphic relaxation, you can't push back. The weight is still there, but all the force vectors and how I'm segmenting my body is sort of moving independently. You follow that? So when I say like you have technique that rests on principle, that would be in the neck of the woods of some principle right there. Curves and relaxation is sort of a truth. And like I talked with Richard Kim, he said, if you look in nature, there's no straight lines in nature. So we're trying to get our karate to be a natural phenomenon, right? Like if there's no straight lines in nature, then why would you have straight lines in your karate? You'd want to have curves and spirals and kokyus and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?